Hey, how are you? Kumusta po kayo? And thanks for tuning in to another edition. Paul presents our. So I'm Paul, and I'm going to be your guide today. So we're just outside the Afternoon Projects Gallery here in Vancouver, which is of course built on the ancestral territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations, and we're about to go inside the gallery to have a look at an exhibition. So the show is by Portland-based Ido Radon. I think I'm pronouncing her name correctly. But she did her master's over at University of British Columbia, and she's here in town to sort of show her exhibition. The exhibition is titled California and is comprised of some wall work, some sculptures on the floor, some sculptures on the wall, and some photo-based works. And it's a conceptual work, and we're just going to go inside momentarily, and I hope you enjoy it, and let's go inside. All right? Okay, we're going to go and start. Customarily, anyways, during my videos, I normally do a pan of the show. There are actually two rooms to this exhibition, which is titled California. And I'm going to go and tell you a little bit about the artist. And because I was researching the internet, of course, and I saw a bit of a biography, and I thought I'd share that with you. So as I'm panning through here, I'm just going to go and stop for a little bit, and then I'm going to read the bio. And here we go. Ido Radon is an artist and writer who grapples with abstractions that structure the social real, as they remain nearly impossible to figure. Recent work focused on technologies and infrastructures, both hard and soft, that meditate or mediate contemporary life. We're just going to go into the second room, just do a bit of a pan of that show, and then I'm going to continue on with the biography, okay? Just go in here. Radon's practice is hyper-aware of the material conditions of the production of art and the reproduction of the artist. So there's a really interesting press release for this show, which is actually written by Tim McCall. An on-ramp by Tim McCall. From a certain vantage point, the Antioch Bridge appears to climb to absurd heights in a vertiginous sweep of asphalt and pre-stressed concrete. More like Evel Knievel than 18-wheeler laden with onions or flat-screen TVs or wire fencing or black plastic sheeting destined for rows of strawberries. From this wildly foreshortened perspective, the bridge becomes an impossible object, loses its ability to reasonably conduct traffic, but gains a fabulous dimension, a traffic conveyance that abdicates its function and snatches up a mythic potential. So we're going to stop it there, and then what we're going to do is we're going to go through each and every piece in the show, and I'll give you a bit of a description. So we're back in the room, and we're just going to go through it clockwise from the first room, okay? And what we're doing is that this piece is called Freeway. It's 2024 photo collage print on bamboo paper, approximately 11 by 14 inches. So it's a print and a photo collage. What I'll do is I'll actually go back a little bit later and give you a bit of some thoughts that I've had when I was actually viewing the show. That's actually a soundtrack that you just heard, so that's part of the show, but there's no, oh yeah, no, it's called Cultural Industry, but this particular piece, so this particular piece is called Error or Intrusion of the Intransigent Subject, 2024, and it's a collaboration with Tim McCall. It's a digital photograph. And that is actually called Culture Industry, California Playlist, and it's an MP3 that kind of plays on and off during the exhibition. This piece is a large piece called Network Interface on Society 2024 Laser Prints And each print is 8.5 by 11 inches. So you can see they're all like little thumbs up. There's this one piece over here that doesn't have a title. I think it's simply like a retrieved postcard, which is actually sort of like the basis perhaps for the genesis of the show, called California. And then we're gonna go over to this piece over here called Monarch Shield 2021, which is made of fur and glass. And then there's this piece over here, which I'm gonna go direct, like frontal over here, which is called Fish Eye Ramp 2024, Foam, Dry Decks, and Paint. So what we're gonna do is also focus on this piece over here on the floor. There are actually 3 pieces on the floor. Let me just focus that. And these are called Weld Sender, World Transmitter after Isa Ganskin, Free Radio Berkeley. They're all 2024, and they're sand cast, concrete, hard card, black walnut. And each of them has a frequency. I'll tell you a little bit more about this piece when we get to it. And now we're gonna go to the other room to have a look at some of the pieces there. So we're now in the second room, and this piece is called Mean High Tide Line 2024 Graphite on Paper, which is 11 by 14 inches. Just gonna go and do a close-up of that. And then this is called Wave. It's 2024 Redwood Masonite Fir, about 24 by 48 inches. And then there's this sort of like series of small photographs called Backdoor Spillway Quartet 2024, print on bamboo paper. Just gonna go and do a bit of a pan on that. Apparently this was the artist's boyfriend many years ago. I'm thinking that this was actually taken in California, but you know, skateboarding parks are all over the place these days in North America, and probably even in Europe and everywhere else. And the last piece in the show is called Interchange 2024, it's MDF. So we're gonna go and have a look. I have a few sort of like thoughts about this work, and I'm gonna wanna share that with you momentarily. This is a photo collage, and as you can see, it all looks like sort of like an interstate. I think from my understanding of the work, it tends to sort of like deal with infrastructures. Infrastructures that are kind of like dealing with the urban nomadic lifestyle that we all live in the cities. You know, I mean, from the invention of the wheel, you basically have to create infrastructures so that our cars, so that our bicycles, so that our skateboards can actually navigate the entire like frontier of the cityscape. So we've actually sort of like incorporated a lot of these things in our society, and we've kind of like lived with this type of infrastructure, whether they are actually permanent infrastructures or temporary infrastructures. And that first piece of the photo collage over here, the freeway, is pretty much testament to that. The thing about it is that I've always been interested in temporary infrastructures. I tend to sort of think of architecture as something that is, it has a certain sense of monumentality about it, but at the same time, if it's not kept, that monumentality tends to sort of like dissipate over time, because humans tend to sort of like become the custodians of these infrastructures. So if we don't take care of them, they're just gonna go and fall to the wayside. This piece that we're looking at right now, which is Weld Sender, which is after the work of Isa Ganskin, it's quite an interesting piece from my point of view, because I was looking at some work of Isa Ganskin, who is an artist. She's a German artist, and I believe she's in her 80s right now. She used to be married to Gerhard Richter for a period of about 10 to 15 years, back in the 90s. And Isa's work for this particular one the original works. I'll try and see if I can find a photo of the original works. But the original works by Isa was actually called Weltemfanger. And the Weltemfanger is actually like a metal antenna extended full length from a series of objects resembling vintage shortwave radios. So the entire sort of like sense about these sculptures is that the antenna structures, those things that are protruding from the cement slabs, seem to be sort of like receivers of information. And then the entire slabs themselves are sort of like maybe there's a potential for that information to be transmitted. It's funny because like when I was actually looking at these pieces, it kind of like makes me think of that little adage that we say that the walls have ears, which tend to sort of like maybe sort of mimic or even suggest that the walls have this sort of like way of actually soaking up information, but has really no way to actually transmit it. And this seems to me sort of like an homage to that sort of like type of thinking. You have these sort of like sculptures on the floor. They have this sort of like essence of receiving information, but there's really no reason, there's really no way for them to transmit it. And when I'm looking at this entire sort of like set, each of these sculptures actually has a certain sort of like frequency associated to it. Like for example, it has the association of Free Radio Berkeley, 104.1 FM, also Radio Alice, and also Freak Radio Santa Cruz, 101.3 FM, which of course I'm assuming are all sort of like radio stations that are emanating from the United States. And what I want to do is also focus on this, because when I was talking with some gallery people here earlier, these are all little thumbs ups, and apparently these are pictures that were taken by people who are in the art industry, either curators or administrators or people that are actually working in that industry. We're gonna go inside and have a look at this piece, the redwood piece, because there's also this sense about, I was mentioning before, the infrastructure or of the urban nomadic lifestyle. And this particular sort of like installation in this room tends to sort of like look at, let's say, the infrastructure for, let's say, skateboarding, which is actually quite big internationally right now. And the thing about it is that, if you have to sort of like have that sport of skateboarding, you have to sort of create infrastructure for that as well. And so this entire sort of like exhibition to me is more like a nod to the infrastructure that we build in order for us to actually traverse certain sort of like, so that we can travel from one place to another. And this one is also one of those things that actually is reminiscent of that sort of like urban nomadic structures that we need in order to sort of like deal with our daily lives in an urban society. So I'm gonna leave it at that, and I hope you can visit this show here at Afternoon Projects, and I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, you can like this video, you can subscribe to the channel, and you can also share it on your social media outlets. Thank you so much for joining me here. Work of Ido Radon at Afternoon Projects. You have a great day, and I hope art informs your life, and perhaps I'll see you again next week. Goodbye.